Welcome to Just a Tip with Jake and Timmy. Hey, what's going on, everyone? Jake here with Uncommon EDC.
I'm Tim from Tim's School of Fish. Go
Well,
Cats.
welcome to Just a Tip. We're joined by our guest Israel of Arcane Design. Thanks so much for joining us. How you doing?
Guys, I'm really good. First off, thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be on the show. Just a tip. And excited to discuss everything EDC, what's going on with you guys. And yeah, I'm here for it.
Awesome, man. Thanks for joining us.
Yeah, absolutely.
Quick shout out to our moderators that we always do. Best moderating team on YouTube, Randy's WSG, Bluminati Ninja, and Cheeto Bandito. And I know you guys are subscribed to those guys, but if you're not, make sure you go subscribe to them.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I see a bunch of the regulars here filling up the chat. Oh Father EDC, Jeff Jackson, Fook Doozle, Navy, Mike Reese. How you guys doing? Raybo. Looks like we're filling up here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome, dude.
All right, you want to dive right into it? You going first,
man.
Tim, or am I?
Yeah, I'll go first. So we try to keep this to an hour, so we're just gonna jump right in, okay? So Israel, for those folks that might be here that might not be familiar with Arcane Design, do you have any knives there that you can show us? And just tell us a little bit about how you got started designing knives and how the company started.
Yeah, definitely. So, a couple of years ago, my wife got me my first pocket knife, and it was a Kershaw Leak. And I wasn't really into pocket knives at all. And she bought it for me. And when she told me that, she paid $60 for it, I was like, whoa, I'm passing this down to my grandkids, dude. Like, I was like, this is the craziest thing. Cause you don't really have like a value set to something that you're coming in brand new. So I was like, this is great. So I started using it, and it got dull like pretty quickly. And I was like, what is this made of? So I started, looking into YouTube. That's why we're all here, like looking into YouTube, seeing certain blade steels, learning about just the intricacies of whether it be blade steels or like other designs that are out there or deployment methods. And then I slowly but surely realized that there's kind of a knife out there for everybody in every style and every configuration. You just kind of have to look hard enough. Since I was a kid, I was always into space exploration, and then, more like science fiction and horror was like things that I was really interested in. And so I loved science fiction, and I was like, great. Now that I know that there's a knife with every type of style or every type of aesthetic or, usability, let's find the one that I wanted. And I initially wanted, kind of pretty aggressive American Tonto with very straight kind of brutalist lines. I like to design in kind of brutalism architecture style, very futuristic, angular. Anyway, couldn't find what I was really looking for. And I had fallen in love with the fact that you could create functional art and that there was an aesthetic for everybody. And I just was like, how hard could it be to try to learn to design, to get into this whole world? And so I just decided to jump in. And through a couple of months, we were able to kind of land on a first design. And the first design, let me see if I have it right here, is the Necronaut, which again is that angular Tonto that I was kind of searching for, but never really found. I just kind of fell in love with it from there. Now, when I take a look at like certain designs, I realize like, I've been doing it for a number of years now. And so I have this, like, I think as a designer, you're like, okay, I wish I could go back and change this, because styles evolve, taste evolves, things like that. And so, but for the Necronaut was like the one that was really, really solidified what I wanted to do. And enough of this awesome community backed me with that first design, which I'm so grateful for, that kind of gave me the hunger and desire and the backing to kind of continue and try to design more interesting things. So This is one of another model that I designed that's called the Praetheon. This was my kind of a flagship when it came to like a drop point knife, something that was for everybody. Fully ambidextrous, multiple deployment methods. It came in a budget version and a more expensive version with premium steel and titanium and stuff. But a lot of it is pays homage to a lot of science fiction, a lot of horror, and that's the world and design I'm really interested in. Yeah, there you go, dude. Raytheon.
Yeah, with the which way am I going? Here we go. The glow scales on there.
Yeah, for sure. There it is.
Yeah.
So just a quick follow-up. Well, just a quick statement and then a follow-up. So I've talked to several people about that weren't really in the knife community. And so like their only exposure to knives would be what they might see at the sporting goods store, what you might see at Walmart. And then when you get in the knife community and you realize that there's so much other stuff out there, it's like, I had no idea all of this even existed. It's kind of crazy. When you're designing, do your designs start on paper? Do you draw them on paper or do you do it on AutoCAD?
Yeah. So I initially started on paper because I had no clue how to even go about it. And I literally drew what I thought would be like, oh, this is so cool. And then, I cut out another piece of paper and tried to find like a pivot point. And then I just moved the paper to see if the handle even worked. Yeah. Because there's so many things you just kind of don't realize. A lot of times, when I was looking at YouTube reviews of knives, I was like, man, I love that handle. I just don't like the shape of that blade. And now that I'm in the driver's seat, I'm like, oh, that's why they did the blade, the handle shaped like that. Or that's why they couldn't. Like you come to find that there is a lot of more juggling and balancing of things than you want in the ideal world. But yeah, it definitely starts with drawing. And then now I have like the skill set to move it into Fusion 360, which is Autodesk. It's an AutoCAD software. And now I have a whole process. I have a list of things now that I have just learned in the past to do. Like for example, the part right here between the handle and the back of the handle, this part shouldn't be thinner, in my opinion, than 19 millimeters. I never knew that I even needed to know that until I put something in my hand and realized, whoa, I think 19 millimeters is the thinnest that I could do that there. Because I think in my perfect world, I like big blades and small handles. If you can get that blade to handle ratio perfect and thin in the handle with a big blade, like that's the coolest thing to me. But there's so much constraint in the design that sometimes you kind of can't do that. But you need to start in a place somewhere. So I always start with drawing. I take a picture of the drawing, I throw it into CAD, and then extruding that into a 3D model is really, really helpful. And then you also, again, kind of with the constraint, you realize that the cool things that you draw on paper that you think this is totally doable, you start 3D printing it. And then you start prototyping and realize like, wow, this was such a bad idea. So it is a give and take with kind of the making sure that it fits all the right qualifications that you want and kind of learn throughout the process. Again, like certain places need to be thicker. The handle should be, you should try to go with a pivot in this direction, and certain lock faces don't necessarily match up with certain handle shapes. And there's just a lot of things that you don't know until you don't know, or until you know. So yeah,
for sure. And before we go any further, I just wanted to take a second to shout out Beef for Baron. Thank you so much for the donation. Much appreciated.
Thank you, Beef.
And sorry, go ahead, Tim.
No, I just said thanks, Beef.
Okay, perfect. And then I was going to say, kind of leading into the 3D printing, was that kind of a game changer when it came to designs where you can kind of quickly go through prototypes a little bit more so than you would have been able to before?
Absolutely. And also it was like, it was not the best. So, and I'd love to know if you guys have gotten into, have you, oh, well, I got to ask first, if you guys drawn knives, I'm sure everybody who gets in this world, they're like, yeah, I'll put pencil to paper now and again. Like, have you, okay, Tim's shaking his head. So you've been messing around with it, huh, dude?
Yeah, I've drawn some, but that's as far as it's gone because they all like, you have this idea in your head and then what you put on paper is just not right.
Yeah.
I don't know if I have the artistic ability to make it work. But we were talking last week. I think it's kind of a natural progression for knife reviewers on YouTube to eventually, after you handle so many knives, you start thinking, I could probably design a knife.
Yeah.
And then it didn't take long for me to just make a couple drawings to realize maybe I can't design a knife. Maybe I'll just stick to reviewing. But I think it's a normal progression. A lot of us that review knives probably at least think about it.
That's I haven't really thought about that before, as far as like, hey, I handle so many knives. I know what I like and I don't like. Let's see if we can amalgamate the best parts of all the things that you appreciate.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, just really quick, Tim, and I want Jake, I want your opinion on this. If you had to sit down, draw a knife, what would it look like? What style are you going for? What blade shape? What size? What do you think, man?
Yeah, for me, it's going to be a smaller knife. I think you kind of lean more towards the larger knives, the Praytheon being the exception.
Yeah.
That
I'm trying to get
Praytheon
away from that, but yeah.
Yeah, I'd say the Praytheon is kind of my sweet spot. I like a Warncliffe blade, so probably go something with a Warncliffe if I were doing my first design.
Dude.
Not so much the sway back. I like a finger choil also, so kind of shorter handle, shorter blade, or I guess longer handle, shorter blade. So maybe a little bit opposite actually of where you would go.
Whoa, I get you. That makes sense. Nice. Tim, how about you?
For me, I probably for a folder, my sweet spot is close to 8 inches, probably. But I actually did a video the other day that I realized that most of the knives that I reach for when I don't think about what I'm going to carry tend to be smaller, which is weird. And I can't explain it, like the little mini sheepdog, the little Devo pony style, the little mini nightshade. They're all under 7 inches, but I like a bigger knife. So if it's a folder, it's going to be between 7.5 and 8 inches. I also like a finger choil. I like a Warncliffe blade, and I really love clip point blades, like aggressive clip point blades, like a Bowie style blade. You have one, and the name escapes me at the moment, but that blade shape is freaking wicked.
I got let me see if I got one right here. This one's called the Abyss. And you're right, it's that Bowie style. I'm there with you, dude, as far as like clip points are concerned. I haven't done a lot of finger choils. I've done some, but a lot of times it's been like a couple of flippers. Like I have this model that's called the Crypt that has kind of a larger, let me see if I can get out of the way.
That's the one I was thinking of.
Yeah, a larger finger choil right here.
So probably something like that would be what I would come up with.
Yeah.
If I were to, it would be something like that. Or maybe just a fixed blade.
And I wonder if you going for that smaller is also due to like maybe a lightweight feel to it.
It could be. I think it's just dumb and easy. It's just, I don't think about it. And they're, those knives are sitting on my desk and I work here. This is my home office. So I do a lot of utility cuts, cutting labels, cutting boxes, cutting. And they all have, that point that you can get down on.
That draw point. Yeah, man. I'm with you.
You know what I mean? So I can get on the tip. I can get on that tip. Right. And so I really think it's utility more than anything, to be honest.
Right on. That makes sense. Nice.
Yeah, my first knife from you was actually the crawler, and I think this is probably the best example of blade ratio to handle. I don't think you
Yeah.
could get any more out of it because of that blade shape. It tucks like really, really nicely right into the end of that handle, so you're right
Yeah.
up against it. Yeah, and
Yeah.
this is definitely a little bit bigger than I would typically get, but I really dig it.
Yeah, that's kind of another indicator of like what I try to strive for is blade to handle ratio. I'm big at that, and I wonder who knows this. You guys probably know this, or some people in the chat. The Sharp by Design Mini Tempest
Hmm.
has, bar none. I've taken that knife apart and tried to figure out like how the heck Brian Nadeau did the blade to handle ratio.
Right,
It's insane the amount of blade that he puts in that knife. That's one of the few knives that I have in my own collection that like aren't of mine, because I have a lot of prototypes. I just keep things around. So I'm not I'm not unfortunately as in the collecting realm as I want to be. I see something cool.
right.
I'm like, all right, cool. But yeah, that knife blew me away. That I had to jump on one of those. But yeah, blade to handle ratio is pretty hard to nail down because there's a lot more geometry on the inside than you would think.
Right.
And I think the reason why that knife does it so well is probably because of that milled detent ramp that knife has. I don't know. I'm sure. Are you guys familiar with that
I've
model?
seen it, but I've never handled it. So
Okay.
Same.
Yeah, it's the blade to handle ratio is insane. It's absolutely insane. It's like 3.5-inch blade. And the best that I can get in a 3.5-inch blade is like a 4.5-inch handle. And that thing's almost close to like 4.25. So it's so just the geometry alone on that knife. I'm like, whoa. And I know I'm gushing over another person's knife, but you have to sometimes, you're like, this is why we do it. When you don't think that you can get better ratios, another person out there that is very creative and knows the geometry can do it better. And you just have to recognize like that is such a cool part about this industry is that we're helping each other grow with certain designs. We're helping the feedback, the things that you guys do as far as reviews. Sometimes sometimes at least in my mind, I'm like, do people really care about my perspective on this or whatever? But it really does. You guys are truly helping formulate the best ideal version of where this industry is driving. Sometimes and again, you could be off on a certain thing, and opinions are opinions, and everybody has their own particular one. But as the better ideas kind of rise through the top with reviewers like, giving good credence to the ones that are good ideas and kind of like trying to say, hey, I think it could be done better with the bad ideas. I think it just only helps our community. And that kind of feedback is super necessary and very helpful for designers, makers, manufacturers. So yeah, that's just my 2 cents on the whole reviewing part of it, because I truly see that it's pretty important.
Well, I think there's a pretty good relationship between designers and reviewers, and that's a really cool thing about the knife community because you don't see that everywhere. And I think that most reviewers, are trying to provide constructive criticism, you know
Yeah.
what I mean, to help the designer instead of just saying, "Oh, this sucks." You know what I mean? So yeah,
right.
I agree with what you're saying. I think it's a good relationship and it helps everybody,
Definitely.
to be honest, and the community as a whole.
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely.
for
We had a
sure.
couple of questions in the chat I was gonna throw up. One was any plans for a purple knife? And I think I've seen some purple knives in the past, right? Or at least purple
Yeah,
blades.
have some purple knives. Gosh, I'm going to be doing a lot more purple stuff. There is a lot of like interest in it. And, now I've kind of settled in from moving. I'm working on my shop as far as like, I got a blaster. I'm going to be doing some customization stuff on some models that people want to see. So more is definitely on the way. If you have like a particular model and want to see a particular color in it, it is something I might be able to offer in the few coming weeks or so. I also do a lot of like small special edition drops. Like I just did a teal crypt drop. And those have sold really well, but I do kind of small ones. So if people want to know about new things that are coming, and I promise you purple is coming, if you go to arcanedesign.co, the website, just sign up for the mailing list. I don't, spam anybody. I don't do anything like that. It truly is, if you want to know more about Arcane Design and particular products or particular variants that are coming or new pre-orders or updates for things, it's a great community to kind of be a part of and feel like you're building this thing with me from the ground up. Because I try to do behind the scenes stuff, let you know what I'm working on for particular designs that are going to be coming out in like more than 6 months away. So it's a lot of fun. So if you have a particular knife you want to see in particular variant, more than likely it's going to be produced in small batches and dropped to my newsletter firsthand. So yeah.
Yeah, I like that with the Necronaut fixed blade, you were kind of asking for input on configuration, if people that are interested in the pre-order. So it's definitely the place to be if you want to kind of get in on the front side of it.
Well, I was having this conversation with another maker, and the toughest part about, at least for me, the part that I like the least is choosing finishes for knives, because every time you come out with a particular finish, there's always going to be somebody that will say, oh, if it had this blade finish with this handle, then I'd totally buy it. And it's like, I love to like kind of, obviously I want people to be happy with the variants that you make. But then if you do that, then I'm coming out with like 30 different variants, and then it kind of gets lost in the sauce. And so it's tough to nail down the ones that you think will please the most amount of people. And so one of the reasons why I do that kind of like survey, and I sent that through the newsletters, because I'm sending it to people that like I know care about the brand. I know they are invested in it with me. And if it's a product that they like, I want their feedback to know what handle materials they want, what color options they want. Do they care that it's going to be Magna Cut or 3V or whatever? And so the surveys are a really helpful way to get information from the people who, support my product drops. It gives everybody the feeling that we're all in this together, because I'm figuring it out with you just as much as, as you are. Because if I come out with a product and I think it's cool and I just do one particular color and it's like, this is my favorite color, it's like, well, it might not be everybody else's favorite color. And at the end of the day, like I want customers to have products that they care about and actually want to carry and want to support. And so I love getting feedback from the customer. Again, the reviewer thing is so helpful for me, because at the end of the day, I love this stuff and I want it to be the very best for the largest amount of people possible in what I can control. There's a lot of things I can't control. Like I'm not going to change the design because one guy wants like 2 additional finger choils or what, like I can't do a lot of those changes, but for the things that I can bring people in, like I love to bring the community in on it.
Right.
Yeah.
Is this the bead you're talking about, Jesse? And if
so,
if I send it to you, will you shave Tim's beard?
That's not happening, bro. I will fight.
Dude, I love how Jesse didn't even put it up himself. He's like, I'll shave my beard. He's like, no, I'll do it to Tim.
Exactly.
So just a quick story. You have to understand Jesse McJames. He's a regular viewer, and he comes on here and he gets one thing stuck in his mind and he's on it all night long.
Oh, he's got that dog in him, dude.
Yeah, so he's going to stay on beads all night long, beads and beards. He wants a bead, and we're never
Jesse, I'm with it, dude. I can't wait to see all the comments.
So what about OEMs? Tell us quickly, what OEMs have you worked with?
Yeah, I utilize both Best Tech and Riot simultaneously.
You have a preference?
Both of them have exceeded my expectations with manufacturing. A lot of times it's not necessarily on like the difficulty of the design that I use one over the other. Both of them are fully competent, fully capable. and I love the production that they both do. I utilize them both simultaneously due to the fact that there's a lot of logistics that go into product design. So, and timing is kind of everything. You know, the timing is a difficult part to nail down because you're talking about something that needs to take 5 to 8 months to produce, and trying to be a small limber company that needs product as soon as possible. It's not like I can just turn on a machine and then a day later have like 300 knives or whatever the case is. So I work with both of them in tangent to build a schedule of what I'm going to be launching yearly, so that when one is producing something, the other one's prototyping, and then vice versa, to make sure that there's like a cohesive movement of new product, and either new product or like different configurations of older designs. So yeah, I use both of them. I'm both super excited for them, and that's what's up.
Awesome. ASV, I was actually going to ask this question a little bit later, but he's asking about future non-EDC products. Would love to see your take on a pen.
Okay, ASV is the man. He has the largest Arcane design collection I've ever seen, dude, online. So you're the man, dude. It was great meeting you at New York Custom Knife Show. You and your wife, you guys are awesome. He posts great pictures. Everybody go follow him. He's stellar. Yeah, I've dove into a lot of things. Gosh, Tim, I'm almost like you when it came to like, I've drawn so many pens, but I haven't come up with something that I feel like justifies putting Arcane design on it. It's like a lot of people are doing a lot of great pens. Big Designs does killer pens. Tactile Knife Co. does, or Tactile Pens make great pens. I was going to say Turnstile, but that wasn't their name for sure. But I do have a couple of products that I'm excited to drop, and one is something that I've been prototyping, and I'll take my credit cards out of it, but I'm designing a wallet, aluminum or titanium wallet, that kind of has that futuristic aesthetic that I, again, am really drawn to. It was something that I realized like I wanted to add my own style into a piece of my everyday carry. I know some people are really into leather and some people are really into other materials and stuff, but I always wanted a really cool titanium wallet. And I'll just kind of show you what that looks like. So it's a card holder that holds up to, I believe, 10 cards, and it's like friction held resistant. So nothing slips out, but you utilize this top portion or this bottom slit to pull out your cards. So I'll give its example without showing all my credit card information. But you basically, if you need a card, you pull it out and then just fan whichever one you're looking for. So you can take this one in the middle or whatever the case is. So I'm really excited about this. I'm also planning on it coming with like a silicone band if you want to use it, if you carry cash. I don't really carry cash a ton, but I know some people do. So yeah, this is the one thing that I've been working on and prototyping. I think I have 4 different versions of prototyping. It's honestly a project I've been working on for probably 2 years, but it's really close, and I'm super excited to bring these in. More than likely, it'll be this year. More than likely, it won't be a pre-order. It will be like an immediate drop, and yeah, we'll see. It depends on cost. Always depends on like materials and finishes and stuff. But I'm definitely going to try to put them out at a reasonable cost. But again, it's the things that you want to carry. It's the style that you want to carry, and I have never found a wallet that I was like 100% like I need that.
Right.
And so I decided like, all right, let's get into it. Again, I tried to design a pen, and I was like, I don't know if I can bring something more interesting or better that's already out there. So until I have that idea or that like inspiration, I'm going to hold off on it. But these things
Yeah.
take a long time. Like I said, I've been working on that wallet for like 1.5 to 2 years. And, I'm still trying to make it happen. So these things kind of don't come out overnight, but I am excited to expand outside of just the pry tool knife realm. Because I think it's fun to try to coordinate everything together. Yeah, dude, Jake, you got them all, dude.
Yes, sir. Yeah, that wallet looks insanely cool, and definitely meets my aesthetic. When I think of Arcane design, this is the color combo that I think of. That gray
Dude,
and
I
red.
appreciate it. It's my favorite color combo too, man.
Hold it up there again. Yeah.
There it is. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Dick Ritchie was asking about pry bars and stuff. There's your pry bar there.
Yeah, and these have little micro bits on them as well. I think this is the design one, so it's changed a little bit since then.
Yeah,
right?
let me see if I have a second one in here. So
it does have micro bits on the end.
Yeah, this is the space bar. It's a 7mm thick titanium pry bar. And this one, the second version, has a little compartment on the back that when you slide it has micro bits stored on the inside so that you can utilize it. It's a 2-in-1 pry tool and bit driver that you can have for your everyday carry in case you need to tighten the pivot or you need to fix your glasses or whatever the case is. So, but yeah, man, I'm glad you got the V1. That's really cool, dude. I really appreciate the support from the beginning, man.
Yeah, I was telling Tim, I think you were the first knife designer I met when I started my YouTube channel.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, it was at CCKS, I think 2022, the spring show.
That was a great year, dude.
And your booth just stands out. Obviously your aesthetic here stands out really well, but your booth is just something super unique, especially at small knife shows where there's not a lot of like presentation. It's just tables.
Yeah. And I realized like environment and aesthetics isn't everything, but I believe that if you can truly convey a type of feeling or an aesthetic or create an environment that is exciting, that people want to be a part of, then they want to take something like that with you home. I was always puzzled because, like I said, I was into science fiction stuff, and I was always puzzled, like, why are people buying $400 lightsabers from Disneyland? Like, what is that about? Like, there's some feeling that is causing that type of fandom, that they want to, that they love a fictional world or a fictional aesthetic or surrounding so much that they want to bring that into the physical realm and have a little piece of that world manifested in reality. Like, that's just, it's kind of an interesting idea. And, but people have attachments to those things. And I think, they're not buying $100 lightsaber just because. It's because they're buying it because they went to a fun experience at Disneyland and they remember the movies and they remember watching it with their dad and they remember like seeing it when they were teenagers in like wherever in high school, after school or whatever. Like, there's a lot of attachment to it, and all of that is to try to create a story behind the product. And I believe that if you convey the right story, it helps you differentiate from everything else. Like, the reason why we buy and collect all sorts of knives is because there's like an emotional connection with it or an excitement to it, or it could be the surrounding. A lot of times people collect it is because, oh, this maker was my friend and I want to buy it from them. Like, nobody needs more than $110.
You're right.
Like, really, no, we don't need any of that. So there's a different driving force behind knives. And I think if you can kind of capture the surrounding and aesthetic and the storytelling behind why your design is different from all the rest, even if that turns a lot of people off because they don't like your aesthetic, they don't like your design, they think it's too whatever, you're grabbing and trying to speak to people who do care about that kind of level of connection with the brand or excitement. I want to create like science fiction tools that people think are very cool, but they actually get to carry them. It's not just in a comic book or a movie that they saw. Like they could see something very futuristic from like cyberpunk and be like, whoa, there's a knife that actually looks something like that world. And not only do I get to enjoy it aesthetically, visually, but I can actually use it to open things. I can actually use it for my everyday use. And I think that's like a really exciting kind of connection. So even at shows and stuff, like you said, displays, I'm trying to create and convey an excitement around certain things that differentiate it from just being another knife.
That's a very interesting perspective. We've talked to a lot of knife makers and designers on the show, and certainly everybody wants their design language and their brand to come through in everything they create. But I think your perspective is unique. It's almost like you're world building.
Yeah,
right?
it's like great word.
It's more of a brand. It's like you're building this Arcane world. I think that's really cool. I think
Thank
that's
you,
awesome.
man.
Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's a cool way to look at it.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, it's just it's a really cool way to look at it. I like that.
It is. And we have a couple questions about Blade Show, both Atlanta and it looks like Texas West. I'm sorry, Utah. You do all of the Blade shows, right?
I do all the Blade shows. Yeah, Blade shows are my absolute favorite. They are bar none like the best as far as business, but also in relation to just seeing the most amount of people.
Yeah.
They're so tiring because, and it's a bummer because I don't get to walk around them like I used to. Like, when I was just kind of interested in the hobby, going to Blade shows is so fun because you get to see everything. I only get to see my 10x10 booth and the cool people that get to stop by. But it's still such a great opportunity. A lot of this stuff, our industry is truly virtual in the sense that like the biggest retailers are all digital. We have the YouTube reviewers. So what I'm saying is that somebody can get into this hobby and never experience another person face to face.
Yeah.
And that's not like with other hobbies. But I think when we have the opportunity to actually connect face to face with one another, you'll tell anybody who's been to Blade Show more than once or for their first time, it's honestly not for the knives. Because you could honestly pick up 99% of those knives on a website the very next week.
Yeah.
But it's the people that you get to connect with, and it's the customers that I get to meet and the people that I've messaged with for years and never got to see. And now I can put a face to the name. And those are the most important ones. So I do have a booth at Blade Show. In the main room. I do have a booth at all of them. And and luckily Blade Show Texas is in my hometown. That was the first show that I got to actually sleep in my own bed. It was awesome, dude. I was like, this is game changer. But
yeah, I'm super geeked up. This will be my first Blade Show in June.
Dude, so I cannot wait to meet you in person then, man. It's gonna be so much fun.
To tell you the truth, I'm honestly excited, maybe more excited to meet all the people that I've been talking to. You know what I mean? To get to meet all these people, that's going to be just as fun as the knives. Because like you said, I mean, I've got countless knives and you can buy. I mean, it's still going to be cool to see that many knives all in the same place. Definitely. But to meet the designers and the people on YouTube and other reviewers, that's going to be killer. So
I'm sure you guys are also kind of going into it being like, hey, really excited to grow the channel, really excited to see what other guests we can get on. So I'm sure you guys are also like, all right, as much as this is like just fun, it probably in your head is like, we should do some business stuff as well. And it's a great place to actually meet those people, because I think we all had this idea when we came in that like, whoa, the Chris Reeve, like Tim Reeve, like, whoa, he's out there, or like Rick Hinder, like these people like are such strong forefathers of like what we
Right.
think the knife community is.
Right.
And then you go to Blade Show and they're standing right behind the booth like everybody else. And you're like, wow, I get to connect with these people. And both of those guys are great guys. And like the people that you get to meet that you are like, yeah, you appreciate their design and you see them on social media. So they might feel larger than life, whatever the case is just like a down to earth, cool person. At least that's been my experience for the vast majority of people that I've met, that I've also felt like, whoa, I can't believe I'm standing next to this person.
Right.
And yeah, dude, I'm excited to see what kind of your guest lineup looks like after Blade Show. It's going to be killer, dude, because you guys are so personable and obviously the channel's growing and stuff. So it's going to be very cool.
Yeah,
likewise.
I hope so. So let's talk about the Necronaut fixed blade. Pre-order opens when? Friday? Next Friday?
Next Friday. Yeah. Let's see. Next Friday. Sorry, I was kind of like reading the comments and stuff. Next Friday, the Necronaut fixed blade is coming out. So like the same knife that I was showing, well, that was my first design. I've decided to make a fixed blade version of this knife. Sorry, I'm like trying to talk, and also I see a knife going through my head, so it's very difficult.
That's all right.
There you go, dude. There it is. Yeah, it's a full fixed blade, and this was the one that Jake, you were kind of talking about of doing a survey on. This is my first fixed blade, and I've never designed one before because I didn't necessarily know. Markets are very different depending on the product. So like people who are really into your knives might not be into your pens. People who are really into your pry bars might not be into your knives. Like I think it's a very different market. You know, I have a market base that I know and am comfortable with when it comes to folding knives. But the different customer base of people who are interested in fixed blades, it's just different. And so I wanted to kind of figure that out and dip my toe in. And so I thought it would make sense to do it on a knife that I know has a following when it comes to the just Arcane Design brand, my original knife. So this is based off of the Necronaut. Again, it's that aggressive American Tonto. This one is double compound. It's a compound grind with a hollow grind on the front. Yeah. It's about 4.1 inches long on the blade and about 8.1 inches overall. So it's a large blade, smaller handle profile, but this definitely still fits in the pocket if you're wanting to attach it that way with like a utility, an ulti clip inside the waistband, outside the waistband. It's going to be coming with a Kydex sheath with these soft loops, so you can carry it canted on the waistband. Or you can utilize one of these soft loops to do an inside the waistband belt kind of clip thing. Obviously, there's so many ways to carry a knife, and but I wanted to make it most accessible to the largest number of people. But there's going to be definitely more finishes. There's going to be about 6 finishes that you can choose from. And then we're also going to be selling additional handles with additional colors in case you wanted to further customize your knife. Additional pivot collars, like we're going to do a really cool Zirku type pivot collar. Nice. So if you wanted to just change things up to make your ideal fixed blade carry. I've never carried a fixed blade before until I designed this knife. And now, especially since I moved to the great state of Texas, I'm carrying this thing everywhere with me. And it's awesome. It's going to be coming in Magna Cut, which again, I was planning on doing 3V just because I really love 3V, but so many people in the survey said they wanted it in Magna Cut that we listened to the people, dude. So we're doing it that way. Has contoured milled handles, and the base price of these is going to be $289. And it'll be more expensive based off of finish and handle material, but we'll be offering it in G10 aluminum like you see right here, and 2 configurations with titanium handles. All the weights are very manageable, especially with the titanium handle ones. It's all milled and stuff, but yeah, really excited. And these are going to be on pre-order next Friday. So
yeah, super excited about that one.
Yeah, man.
I sometimes carry a fixed blade.
Dude, I hope to God it took you a while to collect all those and that they weren't just all on your table, dude. You'd have a problem if they're just on your table, dude.
They're on my desk. These are not.
This man can't be tamed.
These are my regular daily carry fixed blades.
Yeah.
So
nice. So what do you look for in a fixed blade, Tim? Because obviously it looks like you're a fan of them. What do you look for?
I am a fan. So fixed blade for me, first of all, has to have a comfortable handle. If the handle's jacked up, it's just, it's not what it's for. A fixed blade's meant to be abused a little bit.
Definitely.
You know what I mean? So it's got to be comfortable for hard use. It can't have any weird stuff going on with the handle. Other than that, I tend to prefer fixed blades on the bigger side. I think you said the one you just showed was 8 inches overall, something like that. That's right in my wheelhouse. I'll carry a 9-inch fixed blade. I don't give a damn. I know a lot of guys like a little 6.5-inch fixed blade. Whatever. That's, you know what I'm saying? Sure. I mean, that's cool and all, but that's a sandwich knife, in my opinion.
Sure. That is an interesting like emergence. Obviously, there's always been a lot of like smaller fixed blades, but I think there is this emergence of like carrying a fixed blade, EDCing a fixed blade, and it being small enough to essentially pocket. This one is it's pocketable, but it's on that edge that it rides the line between definitely an everyday carry inside the waistband, even if you wanted to. But I think it's also could be attached to like a chest rig. It's large enough to be something in that or for outdoor use. But yeah, I'm really excited about it, man. And we'll see how it goes. I saw there was a comment on here that says potentially a crawler fixed blade in the future. I think it's going to depend on what the outcome of, the pre-order is on this. Again, this is my first fixed blade. I'd love to design ones in the future. And I have a lot of designs kind of already ready to go. But we'll see. Regardless, I'm super excited about this one. More than likely, this project is going to pave way for more fixed blades. So,
nice.
I think it's going to do great.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it.
I think it's going to do awesome.
One model that I think would be perfect for the fixed blade treatment is the antimatter.
Ooh, dude, antimatter. See, we got to get Felix to sign off on on the antimatter because that one's a collaboration. But that would be really cool. I'm trying to think. I know that Todd Begg does a really, really solid dagger. A lot of people do a lot of great daggers. But that one, for some reason, the Todd Begg one, I don't remember. It was like a War Hawk. I don't remember the name of it, but dagger would be super fun. But that kind of just dives into the collab. Like I love collabing with other makers, and Felix was my first designer or first maker and designer that I collabed with. So I would love to do that. We have a lot of people being interested in doing another run of the standard like folder of the antimatter. So we have a lot of projects that we have to do probably before a fixed blade antimatter, but I would love to do something like that. I think that would be very cool.
Yeah, I've been trying to chase down an antimatter for over a year now. So
dude,
I would love a second run.
I know. And yeah, I was talking with somebody about the antimatter, and I was like, dude, I get maybe almost a message a day from different people saying like, hey, are you going to do an antimatter run? And I'm like, what is happening? And I think all these people are going on Facebook, the Facebook groups, and seeing that like the price is way overinflated on the secondary market for them. And so they're just messaging me being like, hey, should I pull the trigger on this or should I wait because another
there's probably something to that.
Yeah, dude. So yeah, that's kind of where we're going on it. I would love to do another run on them soon. I just have to connect with Felix on it. We've been bouncing the idea around for a while, but we just kind of have to pull the trigger. His schedule has to work with, like my schedule has to work with his schedule, vice versa, because he's working on a lot of really cool stuff right now. Aside from his production stuff, he's getting into actual handmade custom CNC customs as well, doing some phenomenal work. And so we got to make sure that the timing's right. That's the one of the more difficult parts about the collaboration process. As much as I love doing collaboration with makers that I respect and admire and stuff, it takes a while to make sure that our timelines and plans for product launches kind of mesh together,
Right. Something I've seen, their booth at Blade Show Atlanta last year was the most kid-friendly booth. It was surrounded by kids because of those foam knives he made.
Yeah. No, Felix, for the last two Blade Show Texas, he made like his own homemade jerky, and he like had a vending machine with like a claw machine that you would just put in a quarter, and you could either win like a foam knife, you could win even a production knife he tossed in there for people. You could win beef jerky. Like he did. Talk about an experience at Blade Show. He did a great job with that. And I admire him a lot. It was one of the reasons why I wanted to, collaborate with him. And he was one of the very first people who actually, when I was starting, I was just sending messages to people that I knew were doing what I wanted to do. Start a brand, get designs out there. And he not only was like helpful, but he didn't know who I was. I sent him one Instagram message and he gave me his personal cell phone number to give him a call, and spent 3 hours on the phone with me. Wow. And that kind of like, that really changed, I think, my trajectory, and realized that like this was attainable, because the people who were doing it, especially Felix, was like salt of the earth people that cared about the community. And, it was awesome. So I tried to do that as much as I can. And that collaboration really opened the door for me to do other collabs with like Brian Brown, for example. I have a knife that's coming out with him, and more in the future. So
awesome. And we're only 2 questions in, almost an hour in. So I'm going to jump ahead. Dude,
we're having a silly goose time, right?
Exactly.
We're just guys talking about knives. That's right.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's what this is all about, man.
But before we get on to that, I just want to say how genius that is to have the claw machine and that stuff there, because if you can get the kids wanting to hang out there, then the parents are going to have to hang out there because the kids, then you've got a little mini crowd.
Yeah,
and as you know, crowds attract bigger crowds because they want to see what the heck's going on.
For sure.
That's just freaking, I don't know if he thought that through when he thought about it,
dude.
But genius.
Honestly,
genius.
Probably did. I think he's all about experience as well. Take a look at what he's doing with custom knives. Like he's 3D printing like giant grenades that they come in. Like he's doing some really, really cool stuff, all to give like a really great user experience at the end of it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
So definitely admire like what he does for sure. And hopefully I need to get my own claw machine. Dude.
There you go.
At least a gumball machine or something.
At least, dude. Come on. I'm lagging on it right now. But yeah, man.
Any plans for a slip joint? We've got a couple of those questions in the chat.
Dude, I'm friends with Ben at Jack Wolf.
Yeah.
Tom from Notorious EDC, these guys that have come up with phenomenal slip joint interpretations of traditionals. Would love to do it, have an idea for it. But again, it's one of those, can I create something that's unique and interesting enough that is deemed worthy to actually produce? I have to say, I haven't sat down long enough to put that much attention towards a slip joint design. I'm pretty close. I have a couple of knives that I think would work well, a couple of drawings that I think could work well and convert. But I think the reason why I haven't done slip joints is because I like to design with taller blades. Like this is I'll just show a prototype right now of a knife. This is the Crawler V2 that's going to be coming out. It's going to look a little bit different, but the blade is super tall. We're talking about 29 to 30 millimeters tall on here. This knife right here, I'll show you the, what's it called? The Plexus. This knife right here is also there you go. This knife right here is also a really tall blade as well. Everything I design as far as like my aesthetics, when I sit down, I like drawing taller blades and thinner handles. I think it's just something that I really enjoy as far as like my design language. And that doesn't fit well with slip joints. Slip joints traditionally don't look like that. They have to like fit in a small kind of constraint feel because the geometry only allows a certain amount. The locking mechanism only allows a certain amount of blade. Unless you have a slip joint that's like the size of a brick, then it kind of doesn't make sense. So I think that's like subliminally, I've never really thought about it, but subliminally, I think that's the reason why I'm attracted to taller blades, and those don't really work when it comes to slip joint designs. But as I'm kind of shifting and changing and evolving, like I said, my taste is differentiating. Tim, I'm kind of with you where I'm like seeing myself reach for the 3.25 inch blades, like the 3-inch blades. And so not that my designs are always going to move that direction. I'll probably go big. I'll move around on it, but I could definitely see it in the future. And, especially being friends with people who do great slip joint designs, definitely going to have to learn more about the actual thought process of it, because it's a little bit different than the wheelhouse that I'm used to. So,
Randy just said this, and that's exactly what I was going to say. One of your designs, the Hawkbill, is that the Volt?
Yeah.
That something like that might be able to translate to a slip joint and still keep your, you know what I mean? Because a Hawkbill slip joint has a taller blade anyway.
Right.
So
yeah, and like obviously you're able to fit more blade into the handle, and again, blade to handle ratio is a big deal for me. The Volt is definitely more in that slimmer realm as far as the handle, and I could definitely see it falling into potentially, I would have to redesign a little bit of it, but I definitely could see in a slip joint. We'll see, dude. Well, I'll probably toss in some, I'll toss in a survey, see how many people are interested, and we'll go from there, dude. But we'll see, man.
Yeah. How did that collab come about with Brian Brown?
Dude, again, I think a lot of people and makers admire a lot of makers that I admire are all kind of in the same realm. So when I was connecting with Felix, I was able to be introduced to Brian Brown at a show 4 years ago or 3 years ago. Same thing with the guys at Keenison Knives. And, a couple of other people who kind of run in the same circles. And so what's really cool about this community is that, like I said, people that you really admire are kind of just a phone call away or are one step removed from a person you already know. And Brian and I, we hit it off at a Blade show 3 years ago. And, we've been friends since. And, we just decided hey, we should try to do something together. And so the process of working on a collab is different from person to person. But with Brian, we kind of solidified hey, we should try to do something a little bit out there, a little bit different. Brian has some really conventional blade shapes and some really what's it called? Not stark. They're very noticeable. Like the Jaeger, truly, I think everybody has either handled a Jaeger or owned a Jaeger in the entire community. Like the number of Jaegers out in the community, because it's such a great knife, is astonishing. And I think it was one of those, like, I have a certain design language that I always tend towards Tontos or Warncliffs or things like that. He has a certain design language that he does Warncliffs and some drop points and some Tontos. And so we both were like, if we're going to do a really cool convergence, let's do it something that's pretty out there. And not to say, like, you know, Hawkbills aren't done, because they are done, and they're done very well by a lot of makers before and after us, you know. But I think we wanted to design something very unique that, like, brought us a lot of joy. And the Warncliffe is kind of where we landed. And I'm sorry, the Hawkbill is where we landed. And yeah, we're really excited. The pre-order for these did really well, and they should be here next month. So more than likely we'll do a drop for Blade Show. But yeah, you guys, honestly, Jake, I think you've handled this one, right?
Yeah, I have handled that one.
Okay, cool. Tim, when you're at Blade Show, I'll have one at the table. So come stop by, because it's kind of in that realm that you're talking about of, like, hey, I'm kind of reaching for those smaller knives, something with the tip down. This would be a fun one. I'd love to get your opinion on it, dude, when you come stop by. So
yeah, it looks killer, and I love a Hawkbill too.
Okay, cool, man.
I could be wrong. I think Hawkbills are kind of polarizing. Maybe I think people either love them or hate them. I don't think there's any in between. You know?
Yeah. When Brian and I established that we were going to do the Hawkbill, we knew we were going to not attract like half of the buying market.
Right.
But the people who are really into them are really looking for the next great one, or the next design that's really exciting for them. Yeah. So we had a pretty good turnout when it came to the backing of that project. And I think, you know, I've never owned one. I've never owned a Hawkbill before this. Wait, let me see. Is that a lie? No, I've never owned one before this. And because I always thought, like, okay, well, the only guy that I saw carry a Hawkbill, it was a Karambit, and he was like a Maul Ninja talking about how, like, he could really do some damage and stuff. And so I was like, all right, that's not I don't want to be in that realm. Right. But you carrying it for months now, the day-to-day utility on it, I'm like, there is absolutely a really good argument to carry a Hawkbill every day. And I don't think you would come up with that unless you actually carried one and realized, like, this is actually pretty versatile. It does everything I need it to. And the uses for it are, like, really noticeable and helpful a lot of times. So I agree. It's a very versatile blade shape, and until you've used one, you probably don't realize how versatile it is. I agree with that. For sure, man.
Yeah,
for sure.
For sure. I know we're up on time. If you have some time, we can field a few more questions.
Yeah, let's do it.
Up, totally understandable. All right. Third collab, the Plexus. And this one, I think, has the most synergy design-wise. You both have kind of a sci-fi feel. I'd say these are a little bit more like flowy and organic or biomechanical, and yours are a little bit more aggressive and hard-lined.
Yeah. But this is a Plexus. I'll just show it for people who maybe aren't.
Yeah, how was that design process? Did it feel like you have kind of a similar design language, or is that kind of me projecting that on there?
Dude, honestly, so Elijah Isham, who co-designed this one with me, if you guys don't know, or people in the chat don't necessarily know, Elijah was a phenomenal designer who recently passed away, but he was known for really, really crazy. Okay, yeah, exactly. He was known for some really, really interesting designs that I think the word that you use, biomechanical, is really a good word, because he designed almost like in an alien language of sorts, where it wasn't necessarily like my futurism is very mechanical looking. It's very brutalist looking. Again, the shapes and the geometry is very sharp and angular.
Right.
And Elijah Elijah's designs looked like an alien craft that
Yeah.
almost wasn't even from the future. It was like from the past. Like it had a very bio
Right.
way, a bio like life form kind of look to it, but definitely alien. Like it wasn't a
Yeah.
human life form or anything on Earth. And so I always just loved his designs because I felt that they were like future relics. That
Absolutely.
somebody could find that in the sand like 100 years from now and be like, whoa, this thing's from the future. Like, and I think that's what, ever since I connected with him, I've been trying to push myself to create future relics. But his design language blew me away. I knew that he was doing, again, like Tim, what we were talking about, and Jake, what we were talking about earlier of like building worlds. He was doing that in his designs. And I was seeing that, and I don't know if a lot of people were seeing what he was doing. With the world building, he was telling stories with designs that really caught my eye. And I remember walking up to him at Blade Show West when it was in Portland, Oregon. So that was like 5 years ago. And it was just like, hey, I had a 3D printed knife, and I was like, hey, I'd love to get your input on this. And it was a very bad 3D version. It was not good. I look back and blush at the things that I approached people with and be like, hey, what do you think about this? Because they probably were lying through their teeth telling me that it was good. Like the things I was showing people at the time was not good. But you start somewhere, you know?
Yeah.
And he could have easily shut me down. He could have easily been like, yeah, it's good, and then walked away. But he actually sat there and he was like, oh, I like how you did this. That's a really cool way to do that chamfer on the handle. Or I haven't seen that before. Or like, and he was just like, I could tell that however rudimentary my design was, he saw the potential in it, even though I couldn't even see the potential in it. And so I felt like on top of the world when he, a couple of times after when we met, he said like, hey, we should do a collaboration together. That would be fun. And I was like, I can't mess this up. Like I have to follow up on this. And luckily he lived in Portland and I was in Seattle at the time. So it's about a 3-hour drive. And when we started designing, I quickly realized that like I had to take advantage of how close we were in distance wise, because usually what happens is like when you say, hey, we're going to do a design, I send over a design of a knife that I'm like sketching on, and then another person like sends their version of it. And then we kind of like say, all right, we're going to X-nay this, keep that handle, maybe change the blade here. Do we want inlays? Like it kind of goes like that through that via text message and email. And that's worked really well, but I knew that Elijah had like a style that I kind of wanted to see how it was made in the background. I kind of wanted to see how his process was, because again, he was building worlds that I wanted to implement in that kind of style. And it was so cool. Literally, he sat right here. I sat right here. We were on one computer. I would change one line and then we'd sit there and talk like, okay, what do you think about that line change? Well, it's going to work this, or I don't think it's going to flow in with the handle. And so we're like, okay. And then he would adjust the line and be like, okay, let's sit back and see, is that the right way? And it took us forever to design that knife, like truly forever. I spent weekends at his place doing it. He spent weekends at my place doing it. I probably made that Portland drive 5 or 6 times to truly work it out, but we finally worked it out. And that experience was life-changing in a sense that it showed me the passion that you could have for this process. And it showed me how it showed me how stubborn designers are too, because like I don't
Yeah.
want to give up an idea that I think is good. And he didn't want to give up an idea that he thought was good. And so we found a middle place that we were both satisfied, and it was way better than our individual ideas. And so I think that's why this knife has like a really like consistent flow to it. If you take a look at all the chamfers and like how certain lines and the inlays or at certain lines match up with like the insert of the blade, like the cutout of the blade, all of it's super deliberate. Like everything that he does, and now everything that I do is super deliberate. And so, yeah, it is a very special, unique knife because the amount of time that was taken on it. And yeah, I feel honored that I was able to bring that back to life and do another run, to try to continue to put more of his work into this community, because it's definitely missed. So
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And I have a question about it that I kind of have an idea of what I think the answer is, but I'm just curious.
yeah.
So, did this start out as a knife that you had designed that you guys collaborated and made some changes on, or was it originally one of his designs that you went the opposite
Yeah,
direction with?
dude, great. So basically it started out like, hey, he said, hey, send me a couple of designs. I'll see if I can riff on a couple of them. And I sent him a design that now when I look back at that design, I'm like, gosh, this was not a good design. But, I sent him a design and he was like, I really like what you're doing with the blade. So let's start from there. And so we took the shape of that blade, and then he kind of started working the flow of the handles. And then I was like, well, I think the end of the handle should look like this. So like the pivot area with like certain curves that they like, here, I'll pull one out. I don't know why I'm talking about it like it's not in my hands. So the pivot area right here with these lines of like these shield parts, he really wanted to focus in on this part. And the blade was kind of where I really focused on. And then the bottom of the handle with these chamfers is where I focused on. But as far as like the curves of this line entering into the slit of the blade or the cutout of the blade, a lot of chamfers, he really wanted to see movement from the handle into the blade. Like a
Right.
lot of those lines, we really, really focused on. And even this notch on the top, I remember we talked about that notch for like 2 hours. Like, does it need to be there? Is it right for it? Does it go with the rest of the shapes that are here and implemented already? And so it was a lot of back and forth, but it initially started with a design and a blade shape that I had already kind of come up with. That he was like, all right, let's start tearing this thing apart so that we can see what's below it.
Interesting.
And he would never say that like how I just did. He was a nice guy, but I knew like how he talked. He's like, let's see if we can do something a little bit different. I'm like, oh, okay, he doesn't like that.
Right.
You
And that
know?
would have been my guess that it started with you and he added a lot of the flow. I feel like with his designs, the lines you can take from one end of the knife all the way to the tip. And that was
Yeah.
like something that he could always do with his designs. And
Yeah.
so
It's
it felt like your kind of design with his touches on it.
Yeah, absolutely, for sure. He had a really great eye of, like you said, the tip of the knife always flowing as much as it could to the end of the knife, and you didn't really know, at least design wise, like pragmatically, you'd know when the knife ends and the handle begins. But
Right.
his designs really kind of like shifted this amorphic design into something like that. And I know I'm getting into the weeds when it comes to this, and I can geek out on like certain line flows and stuff. And a lot of people are like, I don't care about that. It doesn't look cool or not, but there's a lot of things that go into like a pleasing knife, like a pleasing design. And a lot of the lines and the symmetry that he did like really hits on those.
Yeah, for sure.
Definitely admire that. So
I think probably more people than you might think are into that, especially guys that have had knives for a while and maybe been in the hobby for a while or been a knife
True. Yeah.
enthusiast for a while, really can geek out on the lines and how it flows and all that kind of stuff. Like what you were just showing, it's really cool how even the chamfers on the butt end make your eye go toward that slit, and then
Yeah.
once you get to the slit in the blade, you're on to the tip. It's like it's really cool. I think a lot of,
You're totally right. I think when I'm, I work, it's Arcane Design's a one-man operation, and so I find myself spiraling in a lot of these things, and I realize like a lot of at least in my mind, I'm like, okay, a lot of people actually don't care about this level. It's more like a different level. But you're right. A lot of people, especially when you're in it, you want to find the thing that actually is like driving you to want that knife in your collection, because you're a little more picky. You're a little more refined. You know what you like and you know what you don't like. And so if you can kind of like dig into exactly what you like, then you're totally right. That's 100%, man.
Yeah,
absolutely.
So.
Yeah, for me, I feel like I'm at the point where I don't need to buy a knife for utility. Once you pass 400 knives, you have a knife that's going to do exactly what you want. So I'm buying more for design nowadays than I am for utility.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a certain level. I remember when I first started, like I bought what did I buy? I bought a Hinder Eclipse, and that was my first like big purchase. And I was like, dude, this thing's great. And then immediately in my mind, I was like, okay, now I have to get a drop point. And okay, now I have to get a Warncliffe, because I thought I needed to collect all blade shapes in order to like have the Infinity Gauntlet or whatever, I was like, and then I stepped back, obviously, because I didn't have enough money for the things I really wanted, and be like, wait, am I collecting just to collect, or am I collecting because something is making an emotional connection with me? And as I started designing and realizing like, oh, certain designs and certain blade shapes and certain like configurations actually do something different for me, then you're right. You start looking and have like a little more of a keen eye on what you're trying to find, and what does it emote excitement out of you? Does it like flow elegantly? And so that's why you purchase it. So I'm 100% with you, man.
Awesome. Well, I think we're well over on time at this point. Is there anything else you'd like to promote before we sign off?
Dude, I just really appreciate you guys inviting me. It's really cool to see what you guys are building over here. It's also fun to see the questions in the chat. If you have any questions for me specifically, just send it to me on social media, on Arcane Design. In Instagram. So sorry we didn't get to some of these, but it's really cool to see that you guys are fostering a community that people want to be a part of and are contributing to. And so that means you're doing something right. So I feel very honored that you'd have me on your platform. And I cannot wait to see what this grows into, dude. It's really exciting, man.
Yeah, we appreciate it. We'll definitely have to have you on again. We don't even have to come up with new questions because we didn't get to half of them. So.
Dude, this was easy, man. It was like getting together with old friends, dude.
Exactly. But we'll stay online, but I'm going to sign off the live. Thank you, everyone who signed in to watch, anyone watching in the future. Really appreciate everyone, the donations, the chat, the engagement. Great time. Did they win, Tim, before we sign off?
It's 2-2 in the third period. 2 seconds left. We're going to overtime.
Okay, so hockey goes into overtime?
Yeah. And it's sudden death. First goal wins.
Dog.
And they'll play until somebody scores. So it could go on forever. Hopefully not. But
all right.
Thanks, everybody.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, Israel.